Chris, and thank you to the panelists in the previous session. That was a wonderful session, and as always with NGO, we need another 2 hours to talk about things. But hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the final session, our closing session in this week's GEO Symposium. I am Kathy Fontaine. I am the program board representative from the Earth Science Information Partners, and I am a longtime GEO person. I'd like to thank all of you for attending during the week. I would like to thank especially the members of the symposium subgroup who put this together and worked for very, very long hours with the secretariat and with each other and with various other folks, pulling in speakers, getting the agenda together, hashing out which technology we were using and all of that other good stuff. You guys rock. Thank you. And Gilberto, I'm going to go on record here as saying you need to give the secretariat folks a whole week off to recover from this because they really work their butts off. I also want to remind people to say farewell to Gilberto. This is his final meeting as Secretariat Director. We have a Kudo board that you can access from the website for this meeting, but we'll also put the link in the chat. For this wrap-up session, we have 3 talks to hear, 3 people to hear from. A wrap-up of the week from Andiswam Lisa from South Africa, who's also our program board co-chair. Some statistics for this week's meeting from Craig Larley, who's on the Secretariat, and farewell remarks from Gilberto. And please do not log off after Gilberto is finished, because we are going to try and do a very large photo shoot on all of the screens that it takes for me to go through the whole nearly 90 participants to get a screen capture. All right, so I'm going to hand this off to Andiswa. Take it away, please.
I'm sure I scared you there for a minute, Kathy. You're like, is she there? Is she not there? Is she gone? I'm here. So let me share screen, which comes up with something I've never seen before. Okay, so share screen. Okay.
Are you sharing?
I am trying to. It's asking me for. Yes, okay. It's not allowing me to share for some reason.
Well, how about, let's go to Craig, and Andiswa, you can diagnose that in the meantime, and then we'll come back to you. Craig?
Okay, sure. I'll ask Rick to put up my my slides. I'm not going to take the risk that Andiswa just did, because I'll probably end up with the same problem. Thanks, Rick. So good day, everyone. My name is Craig Larley, and I serve as the Work Program Coordinator at the GEO Secretariat. Before I begin, I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank the Program Board Symposium Subgroup and my Secretariat colleagues for their tremendous work in planning and implementing the symposium. Next slide, please. There we go. So we're nearing the close of this year's GEO Symposium, and I hope you found your participation here to be worthwhile, and you've come away with a better appreciation for the breadth and relevance of the various activities in the GEO Work Program. This is the 12th version of the symposium under various names. It began back in 2010. The GEO Symposium is GEO's largest annual event, specifically for the GEO Work Program community. It's intended to showcase the varied activities in the work program and to provide a forum for its members to discuss topical issues with one another. For the first 10 years of its existence, the GEO Symposium was an in-person event, usually held at the GEO Secretariat in Geneva. Attendance at these symposia was typically between about 100 to 120 persons. I say this because it's important to recognize not only what's been lost in being unable to meet in person, but also what we've been able to accomplish under these difficult circumstances. As you know, the theme of this year's symposium is strengthening inclusive partnerships across the GEO Work Program. With this in mind, I'd like to start by highlighting the breadth and numbers of the participants at this year's symposium. Next slide, please. The registrations that many of you went through on the webpage initially, they provide us with useful data that enable us to understand the geographic locations and organizations where our participants are based. Most participants come from organizations in GEO member countries. These participants are not only from government agencies, but they're also from universities, research institutions, the non-governmental sector, and the commercial sector. The next largest proportion is that of officials working with international organizations, most of which are GEO participating organizations, but also including others that aren't yet GEO-POs. The remaining symposium participants come from countries that are not yet part of GEO. In total, we've received, up to this morning, 923 unique individual registrations. Next slide, please. Another way to visualize this breadth is by the map of countries where participants of this symposium are based. You notice that while much of the world does appear, the white spaces of the continents remind us that more efforts needed to engage these regions of the world. Next slide. So we know from previous symposia, including in-person symposia, that not everyone who registers is able to attend. This slide looks at the actual participation up to yesterday. This does not include today's participants. The total number of unique participants who attended sessions was 682. This is an astounding number, especially in comparison with the in-person symposia. This tells us that the virtual format is enabling the participation of many people who would likely be unable to attend the more traditional format. This includes many people from developing countries and younger people, such as students, who would be unable to afford to travel to Geneva. If we look at the individual session numbers, we see a range that is similar or a bit higher than what we had with in-person symposia. However, we also notice that in many cases, there are different participants in each session. Participants are choosing which sessions are relevant to them and attending those sessions and not others. This suggests that the more inclusive and community-driven format this year has attracted participants who might not otherwise have attended a GEO symposium. Next slide, please. I'd like to take a couple of minutes to mention the next stage of the GEO work program. The arrows in this diagram, the blue arrows, show the various work programs since GEO's creation. We are now at the halfway point in implementing the 2020 to 2022 work program. Even so, the GEO Program Board and the Secretariat will be preparing the call for the next iteration of the GEO work program later this year. This symposium was the first step in this process, and the plenary sessions in particular were intended to start a conversation about opportunities where GEO could be doing more to address our engagement priorities, other key international priorities, and the interactions among them. Your thoughts and comments on what is working well and on suggested improvements to the work program are very welcome. I encourage you to speak with me or any member of the Secretariat or any program board member about this. If anyone participating in the symposium is not currently involved in a GEO work program activity and would like to contribute, please contact me to discuss opportunities. You don't need to be an EO expert or scientist, though these contributions are, of course, highly welcomed. GEO also needs the involvement of users of EO, as well as decision makers and advisors whose work would benefit from a greater use of EO. And here I will note that Earth observations does not only include satellite observations, also includes the full range of physical, chemical, biological, and other observations of our planet. We also need experts in using other types of data, such as demographic and economic statistics and mobile device data that may be integrated with EO data to develop additional insights. Next slide, please. Finally, I would kindly request that you please complete our survey about your experience with this year's symposium. The survey results will be examined closely by the Secretariat and the symposium subgroup, and they're used to improve future GEO events. The link to the survey will be sent out today to all those who registered or attended. And with that, I will pass the baton to the next person or back to Kathy, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig. 923. Is that a record?
No, actually, we had higher numbers in one session last year. But I would say the overall numbers in terms of the actual attendance are probably higher this year.
Wow. Keep up the good work, guys. Cool. Thank you so much. And to everyone who does get that request for survey, to fill out the survey, please do take a few minutes right when you get it to fill it out. It does help us in planning the next sessions next year. Andiswa, back to you for the wrap up of the plenary sessions.
Thank you very much, Kathy, and I do apologize for that. I had a moment of bravery on upgrading my operating system, and it's yes. So that was just one of the outcomes of that. Craig, thank you very much for those stats and the look of the week. I would like to pass my gratitude to the Secretariat colleagues, the symposium subgroup, the program board, but also to everyone who has made this week such a success, especially in the manner into which it was organized, because all the sessions were organized by the community, the breakout sessions, and so the whole participation was driven by the community as usual. So a big thank you to everyone on that. So this week we had 4 plenary sessions, and one of those we just concluded on it right now. So just a quick recap in terms of what came out of these sessions. Next slide, please. Next. Am I still connected, or have I lost connection?
You're connected. Go ahead and talk through the slides, and Wenbo can diagnose why they won't switch.
Okay, so we've already heard from Craig that the key message that we wanted to send across with this symposium was partnerships, inclusive partnerships to be specifically within the GEO work program, and this has actually come across through a number of the discussions on the sessions. So if we looked at the key areas that we wanted to address, we talked on disaster risk reduction, the sustainable development, and the urban resilience, including the climate change, which are now the 4 priority areas for GEO, thanks to the new decision that was taken. You can go to the second slide, please, Wenbo. We looked at the EO solutions related to pandemics and planning. We looked at the technologies and methodologies that enhance discoveries, and you would have seen in the parallel sessions the number of events and sessions that talk to your data cubes, and also that talked to the value of earth, the value of earth, earth observation that's coming out. The recent efforts around equality, diversity, and inclusion in GEO, I think we had about 3 sessions dedicated to this conversation during the week, one by the Indigenous Alliance community and one looking at gender participation, and also the EDI session itself. And of course, there's always an underlying in all of these sessions and in most of the parallel sessions that I went to in the presentation, this concept of the community development, whether we're looking at capacity development or we're looking at broader user engagement, which tends to also focus at resource mobilization, also came out strongly throughout the week. Next slide, please. If we dip a little bit deeper into the plenary sessions themselves, we first started up with the resilient cities and human settlements. Of course, we now know that this is a contribution to the new urban agenda, and also our 4th priority engagement area for GEO. One of the key things that we can take as the highlight, I'll let colleagues read the slide, is around creating new partnerships to identify solutions and looking at solving challenges holistically. But even though we're talking about solving challenges holistically, it was also noted that there is no silver bullet to address the kind of problems that we have. And because they are so complex, and this also came out with the water and energy and food nexus that we just came out. The complexities around these solutions will need to be considered, and of course the opportunity for that lie is that we can amplify GEO's impact and bring stakeholders from bottom up and reach directly to citizens. This is, I mean, like if I take the African continent, this is one of the biggest and major areas of concern because of the growth of urbanization. But at that same point, governments need to be mindful that they don't only focus on urbanization, they also focus on those who could potentially be left behind because they're still in the rural areas. So this is on resilient cities. Next slide, please. We then went to the biodiversity and ecosystems. This was the Tuesday slide, Tuesday session, and here the discussions were robust as well as they were in the first session. Here we got the highlights around the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, which has just been launched, looking at these 3 pathways around the global movement, the political will, as well as the technical capability. The ecosystem accounting initiatives that were presented also connected the activities there and the opportunities for GEO around promoting in-situ data collection, including citizen science as an example. And we know that this is one of the areas that the program board and the community is looking at. The Asia Pacific born also was highlighted, talking to the need for better baseline information in order to understand first and also protect the biodiversity. GFOI is one of our flagships, and we continue to celebrate the successes that come out of the coordination support that this initiative is doing. And now with the launch of the Open MRV, which is the measurement and reporting and verification operationalization support, it's yet another celebration for the GEO community. Next slide, please, Wenbo. The Ocean Climate Nexus, so the next two are a link in a way. So some of the things that came out on this was the key role that the the Earth observation community can play in increasing the understanding as well as the monitoring of the changes in our oceans, and the initiatives like Blue Planet, of course, come into play into this. We also know that we have now a role that Blue Planet can play within the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, which is an integral part of the Oceans Climate Nexus. The role of the new technologies and observation programs, in addition to the supporting scientific advancement, were called upon to inform policy and its implementation and provide services. Always, this is, of course, what we are always aiming at, and we're going to get to that as well when we're looking at the highlights of the sessions we just had. The next slide, please, Wenbo. And lastly, the sessions we just talked to, which Chris Justice was sharing, looking at the opportunities for greater collaboration among the GeoWork program around water, energy, and food. It was noted in this session as well that even though we're looking at this nexus, but the previous nexus also has a connection into this. So how does it look like? Chris Justice posed the question around if knowing that Geo has the communities that are looking at the essential variables, be it for biodiversity, agriculture, or climate, if we were to bring these together as the concept of the nexus alludes to, will the policy framework on the ground be receptive to this? And some of the obstacles that came up, some of them we used to the restriction to the access of data. If we go to the nexus, are we multiplying the impact of these restrictions? The resources around having this, a mass number of people working in the field. But I think one of the key things that kept coming up through all the speakers was around the funding for interdisciplinary research, because we know without funding that one can support the interdisciplinary research, but also funding that can promote integration. If we're looking at the GeoWork program, one of the key things that initiatives and flagships and the community activities always report on is the lack of adequate resourcing to actually do the work that we're currently doing. Now, if we're going for integration, one of the key obstacles we're needing to drive and address is around the funding. So the way forward for Geo, two parts that I picked up. One was are there new mechanisms that the program board and the community at large, as Craig had pointed out in his call, when we're looking at the new work program, is there a way that work program can be structured to actually foster the integration and the nexus approach? So with that, Katie, I think I'll make that my last slide, being mindful of time. And I would like again to thank everyone for the great presentations and the great interactions and the great week of the Geo community. And hopefully we'll see people again when we meet in November. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you very much, Andiswa. I'm going to keep this short. I'm going to keep this short because I have a plumber digging in my basement, which you can hear in the background. Gilberto, take it away. Gilberto, we cannot thank you enough for all of the effort you've put into your role as Secretariat Director, and you have the floor here to give us some inspirational parting words. Please take it away, Gilberto.
Hello. Oops. Hello, good afternoon.
Yep.
And many thanks to everyone. And it's an enormous pleasure for me to be able to address you today. So let me just see if I share my screen. If not, I'm going to ask Rick to do it. Yes, system preferences, PowerPoint. Yes, quickly reopen. There's some of this nasty stories. Here's share screen. Share.
So while you're doing that, let me just
maybe it's always this that.
Go ahead.
Let's see. We didn't get the share screen. It's open system.
When Gilberto's finished.
What I suggest is that Rick has a copy of the presentation, so he can share with you, so we can issue some of the problems. Again, it's always this last minute thing. Do you okay, so yes, please. So go ahead and put the full screen mode. Good. So thank you very much. And what I'm going to share with you is some dreams on the future of GEO. So Rick, next slide. Well, let's start with the question to all of you. I mean, you don't have time to get the answers, but when do you think that the concept of when do you think that the concept of a public health system was first proposed? Nowadays, we take this, of course, this is a picture of the establishment of the national health system in the UK in 1948. But when it was first proposed, any guesses? Well, you might be surprised, next slide, to find out that the concept of a public health system for all was actually first proposed by Thomas More in 1516 in his book Utopia. Utopia, strictly speaking, is no place, but Utopia was a place where things worked by 1516. And you can imagine that at that time, as Hobbes would say, life was brutish and short. And yet Thomas More came out with this idea that this place where everything worked need to have a public health system, an idea who took, as you now see, more than 450 years to take place. So this is inevitable. I'm sharing you with this information because it's inevitable that we see a gap between our dreams and reality. But let's move closer to where we are in GEO. Next slide, please. So now the founding element of what we're discussing in GEO goes back to the Rio 92 Declaration, which was the founding declaration on the sustainable development. On Principle 7, says states shall cooperate in a spirit of global partnership to conserve, protect, and restore the health and integrity of the Earth's ecosystems. States have common but differentiated responsibilities. So this is one of the basic principles upon which GEO exists, to do exactly this, cooperate. And yet things take time. You're talking about 92, and next slide, please. So in 2006, someone you might know, it's there. I mean, I was younger, and of course, with not with gray hair. But I remember coming to the United States, saying something which to many people was a heresy, that Landsat should be free. And that's the profile I got from the trade press, where I said, with Landsat type data, the only model that makes sense is data free for all. Now we are 15 years later. And of course we have advanced a lot. Of course we've done a lot. But of course it still needs, but we made progress. It takes some time, but you need to be persistent on it. Next one, please. So one thing which is interesting is that how much things have changed in this 15 years. So what happens now is that we have shifted a lot of the effort in the beginning of GEO was, oh, let me tell you where the data is. Let me help you find the data. Now, in 2021, we know where the data is. So any application, this is one application, SITS, which happens to be developed by my team at Brazil, but any application, Open Data Cube anywhere, can now really say, okay, I know how to find information on the planetary computer by Microsoft or on the Brazil Data Cube or in Digital Earth Africa, on Earth and WS, because all they share a common standard called STAC. So now we know where the data is. It's enormous. I mean, we underestimate how much progress this is to have, the ability to have the data at the tip of our fingertips. Okay, are we done? No. Next, please. We're not done, because now we need to go to the next step, which is to share means of extracting information from data. And it's only when we share those means that we really are going to realize the dreams of Geo. Next one, please. So we're back to principle 9 of the Rio Declaration. States should cooperate to strengthen endogenous capacity building and sustainable development, including new and innovative technologies, which means that not only we should provide data and information, but the states that are part of GEO need to share these technologies. Are we doing that? Next one. And my point is that there's a battle for the heart of GEO between two trends. One is what I call data democracy, and the other one is what we call data colonialism. I don't think I have to dwell too much, but in general, data democracy refers to the ability of not only have access to the data, but use it. In data colonialism, you have access to the data, but you don't know how to use it. And therefore, you need someone to come to you and sell the services that you need. So we're faced between two conflicting trends. I can tell all of those who are attending, especially from those from developing countries, that the current team that makes the GEO Secretariat is fully on the side of data democracy, including, of course, the new Secretariat Director, but the Secretariat staff is fully committed. I can also tell you that, of course, the people who have gone their time for the GEO work program, many of them are represented here today, are also squarely on the side of data democracy. So those who need data democracy have allies, strong allies. But remember, if you are from the developing countries, you have to listen to the new lessons. What are the new lessons? Next one. Let's update Confucius. And you probably have all heard this quote, which is attributed to the Chinese sage. He's supposed to have said, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. And my update to Confucius, with all due respect, is teach a man how to build a harpoon and he'll build a community. Which means you have to go beyond teaching someone to fish. Teaching how to fish is only part of the story. It doesn't allow you to actually break the cycle of dependency. You really need to build the fishing tools to be fully independent. So Confucius on the 21st century puts developing countries in an important dilemma, which you must resolve. Next one, please. Which is, my point is simple. The best capacity development is self-development. The best way to learn is to learn. And nowadays, we're coming to a point where certain of the information you need are available if you're willing to look for it. So there's no stronger way of learning than if you do the X. And here's, of course, you see the picture of President Obama with his initiative of computing for all. And if you are from the developing country, listen to this advice from this old man. Do yourself a favor. Learn programming and statistics. Doesn't matter if you're a lawyer, if you're a philosopher, if you're an ecologist. If you don't know these tools, you're out of the game. You'll be dependent. If you know how to do it, you're going to tap into a huge amount of work that is available. No one is going to do it for you, and no one deserves to do it for you. You deserve to be self-reliant. Remember what happened in the COVID crisis. Countries who were self-reliant in the production of vaccines have in general fared much better than others, which were dependent. Become self-reliant because it's absolutely necessary to make use of what is available. Next one, please. So you've probably seen the slide before because I've been showing it around for many years, or at least when I'm here. I'm telling that the whole business of GEO is about empowerment. It's about empowerment for the experts. And to be empowered, they need to combine the accessibility to the data organized in the cloud, ways of fully sharing the knowledge in terms mostly of software, and of course, ways of integrating their own knowledge, which is the in situ knowledge. And this is not yet there. But in the same way that Thomas Morris talks about National Health Services, and I was 2006 promoting data free for all, it's going to happen sooner or later. Next one, please. Excellent. So when we talk, finally, we have a chance now to really build what deserves to be called GEOS, the system of systems, which was envisaged early on in GEOS. And the system of systems consists of means of empowering people in developing countries to access public cloud systems, private cloud systems, ways openly accessible, and to do what they need to do. It's their harpoons to build their communities instead of just learning how to point and click. And it's not going to be a one-way. It's got to be a multi-way where people from developing countries effectively participate in the overall development. To do that, they need to learn to be self-reliant. No one is going to help you. You have to do it yourself. Next one, please. And we've seen a very, I'm happy that before my end of the time in GEO, we held a workshop which shows exactly what we want to have. Together with GFOI, we organized a virtual workshop, very nicely organized by the staff of the Secretariat and the GFOI Secretariat, where with the help of IPCC, we're working to support the public cloud, which is available in FAO, CIPO, to be able to produce land use and land cover estimates for the global stock take, for REDD+ and for the UNFCCC reports. And this is ongoing work, which I think it's a major way to really see this is one of the S's of the GEOS, one of the systems of the system of systems. Next one, please. With that, I leave you with a Shakespearean thought. Those of you who know Shakespeare might recognize this line from The Tempest, the end of The Tempest. We are such stuff as dreams are made of. And I think all of you, which are the community, you're participating on a collective dream to help this world be better, to help empowerment by developing countries, to help us to recover the earth, and to help us fulfill what is established by nations on the real principles. It has been an enormous honor to serve you as Secretary Director. It has been an enormous honor to work with the dedicated people from the GEO Secretariat, on the dedicated people to make up the program board, the GEO Work Program. It's an enormous honor, and I think many thanks for you for helping me go to this. And please, dream on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Muito obrigado, Gilberto. Everyone, please turn your camera on. We are going to take a group photo that is a lot different than that Tokyo photo we just saw. And as soon as I get everyone's camera on my screen, Andisma and Rick, turn your cameras on. You're on my screen right now. I'll take a shot and then we'll go to the next one. Okay, everybody smile, wave, do something. Say thank you, Gilberto.
Thank you.
Okay, that's one. Second screen.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Vern, Christian, Pablo, Vicky, Luciano, Miriam, Pekka. Please turn your screens on. Brian. Pablo. Craig. Turn your screen on, Craig.
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 Your light is so bad.
I thought I was in
Patricia.
the first screen.
I don't know. Patricia, were you in the first screen? Okay, ready? Everybody wave. All right, we're good. Thank you. Thank you very much for attending this week. We'll keep this open for a little bit, so if you want to say something to Gilberto, wish him some best wishes or something live, so to speak, please do. Just turn your microphones on. And with that, we are formally finished with the Geosymposium this year, and hopefully we can meet in person next year. Yay, thank you for everybody.